Hi, for those of you who don't know me, my name's Robert Blake and I'm going to talk to you today about building a horizontal hive, my first experiment, so it's going to be interesting to see how it works. And this is my apiary at the moment. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hives set up here, lots of lovely flowers, and kept all the nettles and the thistles. We've got lots of fruit trees around here, and of course lots of beans, so there's everything for apple trees there, everything for the bees to eat. So that's the start. So what are we talking about? Right, well, my experience of horizontal hives is this. My son spent several years working in the Pamir Mountains in Tajikistan, and there he and his crew used the native hives, which were effectively horizontal hives, top bar hives as they're known in this country, and they were very effective, and he is very impressed with the way that the bees live in that sort of environment. And his only comment, of course, is that it's very difficult to spin because you've got wild comb grown on top bars, and there's my cockerel going there. There's not really any way of spinning it effectively, so we needed to do something better. So back in this country, my son-in-law works at a place called Rye Water Nurseries, where we also have an apiary. We share an apiary. We have some hives there with other people, and somebody a few years ago had put in these zest hives. There's 3 of them there, and they've been neglected ever since. So I took one to bits recently to see exactly what it was about. And it's a very cumbersome way of building a hive. It's built of breeze blocks basically, which is, they're heavy and they're awkward and not much fun when you want to take the lid off basically. But when we got into it, again, the bees were very happy, and I liked their environment they're living in. It's just that again, there was no way of spinning the honey, so it's a question of draining and squeezing wild comb, which I don't particularly enjoy. So therefore I came up with a plan to build a horizontal hive, which I hope the bees will like, but using brood frames, which I can spin. My spinner will take that size. I think most spinners do these days. So we'll use brood frames throughout, both for brood and for honey. So there we are. Let's go and have a look now and see the one that we've set up. So I'm not much of a carpenter, and I freely admit it, so my neighbour Dan, who really is a carpenter, he makes gypsy caravans and that sort of thing, a proper carpenter. He's helped me, in fact he's done most of the carpentry work. I did the design and he did what I told him to do effectively. And this is our first example of what we're doing. So I admit it is not yet perfect, and we will be doing some modifications on the next one, but I'll just talk you through what we've got here at the moment. So I've got basically a long hive. This one happens to be 2 meters long, although I think that may be excessive, but there's reasons why we built it that length. And we've got, it's built out of plywood, and on each side here and on the ends, it's actually double skinned, and I've got 1 inch of insulating board between the 2 skins, so hopefully they'll keep warm. And so on the top you can see normal crown boards. Just got 4 ordinary crown boards. I've covered them in mesh, apart from the 2 center ones where I've left holes where we could put feeders, but if not, I'll just put a piece of wood as usual to cover them up. So there's plenty of ventilation there. So my aim was to disturb the bees as little as possible by opening up. So I didn't want a single solid lid. So here we are, we can just open up the bit we want. So inside here we've got separators. These come out and they're just separators that I can put in at any time. So at the moment, and I'm using castellations, which I personally like, because you can get your frames in nice and neatly. So I'm going to work on the principle that I'm going to put a normal hive, i.e. 11 frames, into one of these, and then as the brood extends from the middle, and therefore the honey stores extend either side, left and right, because I'm going to work from the middle initially, I can just move these separators down, and moving them down will just enlarge the hive, and obviously I'll put frames in as I move them down. Yep. I've got on the floor, I've got Varroa mesh. and the entire floor is one sheet of mesh, which I just bought in a roll like this. That's no problem at all. And but I do have a slider which goes all the way out like this, one single length of slider, so that will both insulate in the winter, I think, and will also give a fair bit of ventilation even when it's insulating. So as you see, the mesh is down there inside. I've even made, if we look in here, I've even made, believe it or not, a homemade queen excluder in case we need to use it. And I'm going to tell you that we are going to use that in a moment, because what I've done is I've just set up, I just had 2 swarms a few weeks ago, and I put 1 swarm each in a hive, and I've got them down in the apiary, and they're facing away from each other. Both hives are set up absolutely next to each other, so they're facing away from each other. The entrances are at opposite sides. So my plan is, as soon as we finish this, then I'm going to put it down there in the apiary in exactly the same position where those 2 hives are, and I'm going to put those 2 hives into this using the separator here, i.e. in the middle of this. I'm going to put them there, and there's going to be 11 frames either side. So one hive, there's entrances, as you can see, both sides. I'll come back to the entrances in a minute. So one hive will enter from there, and I'll put the frame straight in. The other hive will enter from here, and I'll put the frame straight in. I've got a separator. After they're settled, I plan to put the queen excluder in instead of the separator, but covered in newspaper, the old trick, and then see if we can amalgamate the two. And it may well be, according to some of the old beekeepers, it may well be they'll allow 2 queens to exist separately with their own brood, and the workers will become common workers for both colonies effectively. Whether that works, I don't know. Some people say it does work. I've heard of vertical hives where that system works, so we'll just give it a try. But that's not essential to the concept of the horizontal hive. It's just that I do happen to have 2 swarms, and I was going to try and introduce them both at the same time. But if you don't have that, just a single swarm in the middle, close it down with the closures here, and then open them up as the colony expands. Very simple. Now, as you see, I've got my entrances numbered here. They are numbered not so the bees know which door to go into, but purely because my carpenter Dan, with his fret saw, didn't manage to get the entrances exactly the same size. They're slightly different, so I've had to make a different closure door for each one. So they're numbered just so I know which one goes into which. But I think next time I do this, I'm going to make round holes, and I'll do something like a sort of 1-inch round hole and find bungs, plugs to put in the ones we don't want. So there we are. So 4, 5, 6, and there's 1, 2, 3 on the other side. Now you will have noticed that there's no roof, and the roof is actually being made as we speak. So I will shortly show you what the roof looks like when it's put on. As to legs, well, I can't see the point of building complicated wooden legs, which are going to be heavy anyway. They're going to add to the weight. And so I'm going to put it on tripods. Not these tripods, but I found you can get very nice. They're not tripods at all, are they? They're, I think they're called, no, you lost me now, sawhorses. That's right, technically called sawhorses. And you can get a pair from Screwfix for £19.99. So I thought they'd be far better than making complicated, heavy wooden legs. I mean, otherwise, it's actually not heavy at all. And I can pick this up quite easily. So 2 people can carry it quite easily. It's not a big issue carrying it. That is the plan so far. So back in the apiary, I just wanted to show you how I've set up these 2 hives in which I put swarms last week, just literally side by side on a plastic pallet, and with a door. Each one has a door facing the opposite direction, so I'll be able to use opposing doors on the new horizontal hive. The only issue that I see, of course, is the height. So initially I'm going to put the horizontal hive straight onto that plastic pallet. So in fact the doors will be almost exactly where they are at the moment, and the bees hopefully won't be confused at all. And then by degrees I'll raise it up on breeze blocks or something like that, over the course of a few days until I get it to the right height to put it on these £19.99 sawhorses from Screwfix. And so I don't work for Screwfix, I just happened to find them there. I thought they were just right for the job. So coming back to the actual construction again, you'll see that I've designed it so that a standard brood frame which I can spin will go into there. That's the aim of the exercise. So obviously there'll be brood frames all the way down, and that's the way we'll do it. Just out of interest, I've got a little, we call it a toolbox. We have a little box left at the end here, which is spare, because I've got a fixed finisher there, and so it's our toolbox. The reason actually is that I have to admit Dan got his measurements wrong, and I told him that the length was going to be exactly 4 times a castellation, which is I think about 40 odd centimeters. So the whole length would have come out at 160 something centimeters, but Dan for some reason used the whole of the 2-meter sheet of plywood, which you'll see the remnants down there. It's 9mm ply. As I've said before, it's a double skin with an inch of insulation board in between, and it's standing on 3x2 runners, which are the solid construction, and down here we've got obviously the normal space to put in the frames and the castellation. Well, here we are then. Sunshine at last. Hopefully the summer's started. It's the 30th of July and been waiting for a long time for a bit of sunshine and some warmth. But anyway, we've now finally finished it off, and this is the final finished product. As you can see, the roof is constructed with a slope on it, so the rain will run off to the side. We put a simple membrane on the top, but you can use any sort of finish that you like. It's not really important, anything waterproof obviously, and it's very light, so you can lift it off. One person can lift the lid off and put it down to the side, exposing, as we've said in the past, the crown boards which are on the top, which will now enable you to work your bees. So there we are. All we have to do now is put it down in the apiary and introduce the bees. Okay, so this is Dan. Hi Dan. Hi. This is Dan, who's done all the carpentry. I've already told you about that. And I've just discovered I made a serious mistake, because I forgot to tell him to build into it a kind of runnel that needs to go along it, so that we can use the Hive tool like this to lever off the frames when they're in there. So luckily Danny can salvage the situation, and he's just going to put in put in a runnel, if that's the right word, all the way along, so we can use the Hive tool as a lever. That's the plan. Off you go, Danny.
So, does that roughly be where you want it? Obviously it's going to be a bit deeper.
Yeah, that's fine for position, yeah. Just
excellent. So I need to make sure now.
Cyrus has got his sunglasses on now. Well, last night I blocked off the entrances to the 2 swarm hives I had there, and this morning I came down bright and early and I transferred the frames from each of the 2 swarm hives into the new horizontal hive, and I shook out the remaining bees that were squatting in the brood boxes. That was a couple of hours ago. Certainly this side of it seems to be okay now. They found the entrance and they seem to be using it. Let's have a look at the other side. And the other side isn't so busy. Yes, there are bees going in and out. That was a much weaker swarm than I expected when I got into it. It really, they were only using 3 frames and they only had a little bit of brood in it. So I'm not very hopeful about that. This is why really I was quite keen to combine these two, because the other one on this side, as you can see, is quite busy, and they'd done quite well in the couple of weeks they'd been in a hive since I took them as a swarm. They'd really built up a bit. So hopefully I'm doing the right thing by combining the two in the way I'm doing. We shall see. Anyway, I shall put the lid on shortly and then see what happens after that. So the lid is now back on. The bees all seem to have settled, and certainly on this side there, as you can see, they're busy going in and out. They found their hole. That's not a problem. Let's have a look on the other side. Not so busy, but then this is a surprisingly weak swarm. I was surprised when I opened it up how weak it really was. They'd only managed to create 3 brood frames, although they've been in there a couple of weeks, so they're not doing so well. But this first one was really strong. I was very pleased with this one. So it shows the advantages, I think, of combining them, which is what we're going to have to do eventually, to combine them to make something worth having. Look, there's a wasp attack already. We have a serious problem here with wasps, and I can see them trying to get in. Hopefully this hive is going to be strong enough to defend themselves, but I think the other one might be an issue. I shall make some door closures and give them a smaller entrance, I think. Anyway, so that is the horizontal hive that I created in action now. It just remains to be seen whether the bees really like it and whether it's a success. The only way of judging, of course, is in the long term if the bees are happy in there and they live happily and create lots of honey. But whatever happens, I think it's got to be a big advantage over the traditional system, because if you look at a hive like this, all the effort involved in unstacking all those heavy supers, and I tell you they are heavy, to get at the brood box, to do any sort of examination whatsoever, is really quite tough. And I think if we can avoid having that sort of work involved and work very simply along the horizontal hive, it'll make such a big difference to me and hopefully to the bees too, because it'll be much less intrusive. So there we have it. The whole exercise therefore was creating a horizontal hive with frames that could be spun, and therefore we've achieved that. It just remains to be seen how happy the bees are in it, and that's going to be the measure of our success.